Hi, folks. I'm Father Joe Grimaldi. You can call me Joe, and I'd like to welcome you to my podcast. But now, here's our host and friend, Ken Calvert.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ken Calvert, and we would like to welcome you to the Father Joe Grimaldi podcast. Friends of the Father Joe podcast know that the COVID world we now live in is constantly changing. One of the great success stories to adapt, provide, and serve, well, that's our friends at Starlink, and I encourage you to start the process by simply going to www.starlincoln.com. It's right there. Check out the new vehicle inventory, and what an inventory it is. Oh, by the way, our certified pre-owned vehicles, well, they're abundant and in near perfect condition. Our award-winning service department remains by appointment only, but they're open from 8 until 6 p.m. However, we're now accepting walk-ins for new vehicle sales, and those hours are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. I have to tell you, as a Star customer for 2 decades, I have never seen a stronger lineup of new vehicles. 248-354-4900, 248-354-4900. Star Lincoln, located right there on 12 Mile Road, just east of Telegraph, home of the Star treatment. Happy birthday.
Oh, cut it out.
To you.
Cut it out.
Happy birthday to you.
Somebody said to me, it's only a number. Yeah. I said, yes, but they haven't mentioned it to my body.
You know, it's funny you would bring that up. We can tell people. I mean, it's easy enough.
I don't care, yeah.
Father Joe turned the big 8-0.
Right.
Why? I don't like people saying to me, hey, you're turning the big 5-0. Hey, you're gonna turn the big 7-0 next August. Yeah. What's so big about it? I'm not a big fan, okay? It's a larger number, but I'm not a big fan. I feel 30. How about you? How old do you feel?
Maybe 120?
No.
I'm only kidding.
I'm not talking about your body. If you didn't know age, if we didn't do this thing, counting our years, a cyclical thing that we do, how old would you feel?
I don't know, maybe 50 or 60. I haven't...
50? Okay. I thought 50 was a good age.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed my 30s. If I could pick...
a decade?
Yeah, a decade to go back to, It would be my 30s. But
I don't feel any different than I did yesterday or the day before. So it's a matter of, we do have to keep some sort of record. So the record says that if I was born in 1940 on September 1st, then I'm 80.
That's basic,
but that's okay.
Yeah. That's how I see the system working the same way.
And it beats the alternative.
Yeah, that's right. August 30th, 2 days before you, I turned 69. You appear to be in the body of a 69-year-old, where I feel more like a guy who's 80 years old, the way I sort of move around all the time. But I kid. I've never seen anybody have more pep in his step at your age than anyone. I mean, I have... Well, I have...
Thank you.
I have lots of people to compare it to, and I have seen people my age. They look so much older than I look.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's all an age, but we all celebrated over at Brother Rice last week, and you had just a parade of celebrations, and you've enjoyed every minute of it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to celebrate all year, so it'll be good.
Okay. Yeah. Have you had more than 2 dinners, 3 dinners in the last week?
We're not counting.
Okay. But you enjoy a nice meal.
Oh, I do. I do. But you know what? The older I get, I like to be home at a certain time. I love to go places, but I love to go home, too.
Yeah. I don't know why the poor restaurant got this rap, but Bill Knapp's. Remember that?
Oh, I remember Bill Knapp. Their donuts and all that.
At what age do you start going to Bill Knapp's?
Yeah.
They got the special over at Bill Knapp's at 4 o'clock.
On your birthday, it's for free or something.
Yeah. They make a great breakfast at 4 in the afternoon.
That's right.
Yeah. They got breakfast 24 hours a day. Love that place. Like Howard Johnson's, too. They got those nice clams, you know what I mean? Those fried clams. Howard Johnson's, long gone. Bill Knapp's, long gone. Which goes to my next point. So many businesses have, unfortunately, due to COVID, gone out of business.
Yeah.
Or been forced to totally retool, rethink, and have a totally different mission. But it's been downsized. And a lot of people have lost their jobs. It's probably been the worst 6 months I've ever lived through. I don't know about you, but it's really been tough.
It's been horrible.
It's been bad. The Catholic Church allowed people to start going back to Mass on a very limited basis. I want to say 6 weeks ago?
About that.
About 6 weeks ago.
It was 25% of capacity.
Yeah.
And then they raised it to 50%.
Yeah. Oh, they did. Okay,
but we're not getting capacity.
Yeah.
They save a place, if you want, on the internet. You'll get a seat by going to the church's site, and then you carry that with you. It's on your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that the 10 o'clock Mass, you still need them. But I think they could get a few more people in. The 1 o'clock Mass, the 5 o'clock Mass, I think you could get in without the ticket because it's not that crowded.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And the reason why I bring that up is because of the fact that on Sunday the 6th, the Archbishop had mandated that it be our Sunday obligation fulfilled,
would resume, yeah,
fulfilled once again by going into the churches. That's been changed. That's been pushed out to, I believe it's now November
22nd.
Yes, November 22nd, and we'll start year B on the Roman Catholic calendar, right?
You're correct.
See, I do my homework on this stuff.
You're good.
Okay. I think the Catholic Church has done a marvelous job adapting to this, and I'm quite frankly, I'm amazed at how well we have adapted. Are you surprised in any way, shape, or form?
You bring up a very interesting point. I've been giving it a lot of thinking, and I have nightmares that we're not going to have the same numbers when this is all over with. People are starting to dwindle away from their obligations. I think a lot may have to do with the idea that it's so easy for the archbishop or the bishop or whoever to say that the dispensation is now granted. All he has to do is say the word. Now, for all my 80 years, you were never dispensed from going to Mass on Sunday, okay? So, all of a sudden, the bishop says, you are dispensed until September 6th, and then September 6th, well, that's too soon. You're dispensed until November 22nd, and we really don't know what it's going to be like around the middle of November when they're going to have to make that decision. Are we really going to go back and so on? But here's another danger, okay? If we are still supposed to keep distancing, we couldn't handle everybody to come back. There isn't the room for people to come back. So, for example, you take a church that has the capacity of 1,300. Well, we won't allow more than 200 at the present time. If the distancing is going to continue, well, we won't be able to have the people come. I don't know how that's going to be handled. Now, part of it will be handled because people are so, I don't want to use the word disillusioned, but this whole bit reminds people, if they're old enough, of the days when you couldn't eat meat on Friday, when it was a mortal sin.
Yeah.
Well, at some point, somebody said, okay, it's no longer a sin to eat meat on Friday.
Yeah.
So if it can be done so easily, and then, of course, you've heard people joking around, are all those people that didn't eat meat or did eat meat on Friday, are they all in hell, and so on. I just want to tie in, though, first, because I'll lose it.
Yeah.
The idea that a word can really change the dispensation, if that's the case, why is it so different now when all of a sudden the bishop says, we are dispensed from any obligation to go to Mass on Sunday until such and such a date? Well, if it's so easy to dispense it, how serious can it be? And so I can picture people saying, okay, if that's the case, I would rather have breakfast at home, a leisurely breakfast, bacon and pancakes, whatever, and we could always turn on the TV to see a little bit of the Mass. Now, you were mentioning about the jokes that occurred in the early days.
Mm-hmm. Comedians actually would make fun of the fact that eating meat on Friday was a mortal sin and you would go to hell.
Yeah.
And there's a guy sitting on the bench in hell, and the guy that was right is somebody like Charles Manson, okay? And Manson turns to you and says, what are you in for? Oh, I had a hamburger on a Friday. That got people's attention.
Yeah.
Hell was used a lot, back in the day to sort of like get in there. It was sort of the poking stick, But that aside, the Archbishop, I have a question because you said something in the body of that. The Archbishop has the power, without going through Rome and the Vatican, to dispense for another year if he wanted?
Yes.
He does.
Of course he does.
That's a lot of power. I didn't know that.
Well, it's power, but he's relying on his advisors as well. Any bishop, we say archbishop because we live in an area which has an archbishop. An archbishop is in charge of an archdiocese. Mm-hmm. It's not the other way around. So in other words, bishops have the same power as an archbishop.
Right.
And the bishop is in charge of his territory. And he's got the last word unless he's pulled out of his office. But otherwise, the bishop has the same power. Just the Pope has power over Rome. He's the Bishop of Rome. Mm-hmm. So he would be that. Now, what is different is, and I don't want to get into that whole hierarchical structure, but just to explain this very briefly, because he is the Pope, and when they have meetings of all the bishops, if everyone's in agreement, he could take a stand and say, this is the way it is. And everybody has to abide. But outside of that, every bishop has the same power as the Bishop of Rome as far as the diocese is concerned.
Therefore, politicians like to use the expression, I'm going to follow the facts, I'm going to follow the science, I'm going to rely on those who are in what I believe
the medical field, whatever it might be.
Epidemiology, the Fauci, the Birx. So the Archbishop then does the same thing, right? He's probably got a panel of pros at Henry Ford, given its proximity to the Blessed Sacrament. And that's what he does. He has a panel of people that they have an open discussion, and then he makes the decision, right?
He's the one that makes the decision, though, yes. Okay. And, he's not going to do something crazy, okay? Yeah. Because if he does, he'll be removed from his office. However, he does use common sense. He obviously, if we have some sort of an epidemic on the 1st of November, you can be assured that it's probably going to be postponed again.
Yep.
But as it stands now, we will start the new liturgical year, which is right after the Feast of Christ the King. Mm-hmm. We will start that on time, which will be by asking people to attend Mass. But my problem is this.
Yeah.
If we are still insisting on physical distancing,
social
people
distancing,
can't come.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So I don't know. He's going to have to make some allowance for that because people will not be able to fit into the churches.
Let me ask you this then. What about the people that say, okay, it's my obligation once again to attend Mass on Sunday? I am one of those people that happen to be in poor health. I'm not taking any chances. I'm sorry. At this point, I'm going to continue to stream, and I'll take my chances in the afterlife, okay?
Yeah, but that's always the case.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I don't mean to correct you, but It's always the case, okay? Even without the dispensation. If someone is in poor health, he's not supposed to come to Mass, or she. And so that they have been listening to the Mass because we are fortunate in these United States, and I think it exists in other countries as well, somebody is live streaming a mass, okay?
Sure.
It's only recently that most churches were doing it, but somebody is live streaming, whether it be the mass from Notre Dame, the mass from Rome, the mass from New York. There's always a mass that you could find on the internet or on TV. But that's always the case, Ken. For example, because of old age, because they have problems, they need oxygen,
right?
Because they just can't move around so easily.
Sure.
They stay home, and they're supposed to stay home.
Okay.
But that existed even before this.
That's okay, thank you, because I was going to ask you that. So in other words, I think it's only been in the past 5 years or so that it kind of came to the forefront with flu and how it really affected workplaces. And that's pre-COVID, they started that whole mantra, if you don't feel well, stay home, okay?
Yeah.
And now we know that people can, if they don't feel well, stay home and still participate as best they can by using Zoom or just bringing their laptop home and doing their work from home.
Or just as the bishop says, keeping holy the Lord's Day.
Sure.
You can do it in many ways.
Right.
And so, when we think back about this idea of staying home, even without the pandemic in the early days, remember that parishioners could bring communion to their loved ones, the loved ones who could not come to church. The husband, the wife, the children would bring communion to them. So that existed before the pandemic.
I, for some reason, do and don't remember that. I don't know why.
Well, there's a little container which is called a PYX.
Yes, yeah.
PYX.
Yeah.
And what happens is, very often, with the permission of the pastor, the person presents the PYX to the priest puts a host in there, and then that host is brought to the person who is ill.
We did a podcast on the PYX because at one point when we were trying to be, sages and sooths, we were looking out and we were predicting what we thought may happen with the distribution of the Holy Eucharist. We kind of thought that there might be a place for the PYX once again. You know what I mean? For people.
That has never changed. There is a place.
But I mean, a really important place for it in a COVID world. But which leads me to this as we get near the end. How do you think the churches have done allowing people back in? And have you heard of any contact tracing or any issues in any one of the parishes? Because I've heard nothing, and I'm telling you that the media would love to jump on something like a Catholic church becomes a super spreader for the coronavirus. And that's just the way media is working these days. So I haven't read anything. I haven't heard anything. To me, it seems that the Archbishop and his plan and the Catholic Church and their plans have been working pretty darn good.
Yes, it's been smooth sailing, basically. Just recently, one of the students in one of the Catholic schools was tested and discovered he was positive for COVID. So the whole class had to be quarantined, which then announcements went to all the families in the school that if they came in contact with this particular student, they would have to be quarantined. But at least the one class was definitely quarantined for 14 days. So it's interesting that that's the first and only one that I've heard of on the elementary school level. Obviously, in colleges, it seems to be happening every day because, let's face it, they have the freedom, the students do, of socializing after school on the weekends, and that causes a lot of contact.
Yeah, let's face it, when you're, maybe a junior, but certainly when you're a senior, you're starting to get to that stage where, especially second semester seniors, you've basically been accepted at a college, and we all know that second semester seniors, a lot of them just kind of phone it in. I remember at this point, unless it was a sporting activity or whatever else. But that's when high school kids are starting to experiment with a lot of partying and, dating and.
But you hear it being more on the college level.
Oh, absolutely. But the starter set occurs in the senior year of high school. That's where you kind of learn to, get together and kind of break some rules and, get together with more friends and all that. But
Most of the Catholic schools they're teaching in person.
Yeah.
And so I have not heard of any, except for the elementary schools, as I mentioned before.
Right.
So I have not heard of any situation yet.
On that note, I'm going to give the Catholic Church, I'm going to give them a B+. I'm tough in terms of handing out A's. I'll give them a B+. What about you?
Yeah, I will certainly agree with you, whether it's a B+ or an A- or whatever the case might be.
How about we continue to...
How can I judge?
Yeah.
But I'll say this, that it seems to be working smoothly.
Little prayer to take us home, sir?
Yeah, I think, sometimes we feel that God has deserted us. So the title of this prayer is, God, are you there? God, I've never really talked to you before. Are you really there? Can you really hear me? I know people who claim to know you, and they don't seem as afraid as I do. I don't want to be so afraid. If I knew that you were real, I would want to trust you. Would you help me to believe? If you are real, would you open my eyes and heart to you? Would you give me faith to believe in you and trust you? While I'm stuck at home, would you please guide me to online sources where I can learn more about you? I want to know you're real. And I want to know the comfort that you give to your people. Amen. This is Father Joe Grimaldi, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Father Joe Podcast.
We'd like to remind you to share the Father Joe Podcast with your friends. You can reach Father Joe at frjoepodcast@gmail.com, and you can find us on Facebook or say, Alexa, play the Father Joe Podcast. We look forward to seeing you next time.